Hello, this is Mayor Raz J. Baraka, and thank you for tuning in to EduTalk, where we will discuss incredible topics centered around our young people, about local control, community schools, our special needs population, creating curriculum and opportunities for young people to move forward from elementary school into careers or to universities. It is the opportunity for us to discuss our young people's creativity, their imagination, their ability to move our city forward. We need them in Newark, and we need the best educated, the most well-trained, incredibly courageous and imaginative young people coming out of our school system. And this show gives us an opportunity to engage those topics. Again, thank you for watching. God bless.
Hello, Newark. Welcome to EduTalk. My name is Antoinette Richardson. I'm the Chief Education Officer for Mayor Baraka's Office of Comprehensive Community Education, and this is EduTalk. On February 27th of this year, Mayor Baraka and My Brother's Keeper Alliance brought a Pathways to Success Opportunity Summit to the Prudential Center. There were lots of local and national sponsors there. Our forever POTUS, Barack Obama, sent a video message especially for the participants in Newark. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of young men aged 16 to 29 who came through the Prudential Center that day. It was amazing to see. Some got haircuts, some got shoe shines, all of these services donated by local vendors. There was a lot of job preparation, and some of the young men even walked away that day with employment. Everyone said the event was spectacular. I can tell you it was emotionally fulfilling, and it was simply praiseworthy. Today, we're going to meet a few of the men who make it all happen for My Brother's Keeper in Newark. Katim Scherer-Eel, Director of My Brother's Keeper Newark. Will Simpson, Director of Collaborative Action at My Brother's Keeper Newark. And Ramon Melendez, My Brother's Keeper Newark intern. Before we move on with the show, as you know, we always have a fun fact. So we're going to do it a little bit differently. You're going to have to listen really carefully. Which of the following is not a milestone of My Brother's Keeper? So that means that everything that I'm going to say is a milestone of My Brother's Keeper except one. It's not going to be easy. Getting a healthy start and entering school ready to learn. Reading at grade level by grade 3. Making sure every student goes to a high-achieving school. Graduating from high school ready for college and career. Completing post-secondary education or training. Successfully entering the workforce. Keeping kids on track and giving them second chances. We'll be back to you in a little while with the answer. Ponder on those. So back to My Brother's Keeper Newark. So while putting together an event of the magnitude of the one that took place at Prudential Center is a lot of work, the mission and the actual work of My Brother's Keeper is not just about an event. So now I'm going to ask the gentlemen who are here today, what is the origin and what is the mission of My Brother's Keeper? As I said, obviously, not just a one-time event. So, Will.
Sure, absolutely, Tony. First, let me say thank you for having us on the show today. We're really excited to be a part of what you're doing here in the city of Newark around education and really help our young people in every way we can, and be able to get the message out to the community is awesome. So MBK Newark started back in, really, I'm going to take you way back, right, 2013. That summer, Trayvon Martin actually, excuse me, that February, Trayvon Martin was killed. Throughout that summer, we saw turmoil around the country, and then we had the George Zimmerman verdict that was given out, and people were just up in arms. I think the president saw that and said, you know what, I'm president, I'm a black man, president of the United States. There has to be something I can do from this position.
Let's clarify. Which president?
President Barack Obama.
Yes, sir.
All right. So President Obama brought together a task force in 2014 to really figure out what we can do nationally to really provide opportunities for boys and men of color. He brought together a task force in late 2014, early 2015, created this My Brother's Keeper task force playbook. From there, the city of Newark signed on under the leadership of Mayor Baraka to really start looking at what we could do for boys and men of color here on the ground in the city that isn't just rhetoric, isn't just talk, but is really making impact in the lives of young men of color. So we really hit the ground running, right? There were a bunch of programs that we did around the community. One of the major highlights, I would say, is Sprint's program that we were able to partner with the city on to provide wireless devices for young people throughout the city, which in the second iteration, I think, was even greater to actually start getting iPads or tablets out to the community as well. But for us, following kind of the footsteps in the plan from the White House at that time, really looked at some of those 6 milestones that you mentioned earlier. Over the years, we've kind of consolidated a little bit, really focusing now on mentoring and the violence reduction strategies, as well as workforce readiness and jobs for young people and boys and men of color 14 to 29. So the work is massive. There's a lot of it to do, and we need the support from the community. It's not just these 3 guys sitting up here, right? It's a whole entire community that's really working to the benefit of young men of color to make sure that they have every opportunity to reach their potential.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask you in a few minutes, a little later, more specifically about what people can do to get involved. But for now, Katim, I'd like to ask you, Director, what do you actually do? And I don't mean you, but what does My Brother's Keeper actually do? We just heard a lot of buckets of work, but what do you actually do?
Yeah. So you heard from Will sort of our call to action, really to address persistent opportunity gaps for young men of color in the city of Newark. And we've taken the lead of our mayor in terms of thinking about how we might do that. And one of the things that the mayor has been insistent on is that at the same time as this work focuses on policies and systems change to really get after those barriers to opportunities, we have to also create opportunities for young men and men in our community to be more engaged. And so our focus in the work has really been looking at mentoring. And what we know of the work around mentoring is that having a positive male role model in your life makes a huge difference, and it especially makes a huge difference at those pivotal transition points for young men, middle school, high school, and as you go into college. And when we talk about mentoring, it's not the traditional one-to-one. Really important, and we support a lot of the work that happens to promote one-to-one mentoring relationships. But we're bringing a cultural, competent approach to our conversation around mentoring and saying in our community, mentoring happens in a lot of different ways. Everything from the barbershop to the basketball court to just walking down the street. What are those opportunities for men in the community to really invest and pour in the lives of young people and send real positive messages? As Will mentioned before, our other focus is around second chances and violence reduction. It's unfortunate that the reality in our city is a lot of the violent crimes that we see, the perpetrators generally are young men. The victims are young men. And so it's a vicious cycle that we have to interrupt. And as a part of that interruption, we're looking at issues of how is it that our young people are overexposed to violence, right? And what does that trauma do to you and your sort of outlook on life in terms of what's possible for you? And then lastly, our sort of focus that you mentioned earlier is around living wage jobs. And you and many others across the city were a part of helping Newark have a groundbreaking success with the Opportunity Summit. This was something that the Obama Foundation had done in 3 other cities around the country before coming to Newark. But Newark had more people, more partners, and more young people who walked in that door and left with an opportunity. We were so excited as we went around the city reaching out to different partners to promote this with young people. we said that this was going to be about creating 1,000 opportunities. And so everything from the barbers to the community-based organizations, it really was about connecting our young people to those kinds of opportunities. So, you know, when I think about what we do, we mobilize the community for action. We take what works and we try to get it to as many places as possible. And we incubate innovation. We think of ways that we can think differently about old problems where we need new solutions.
You know, it just really, you know, makes my heart warm to hear all this. And, you know, just seeing the young men at that event, it was something it's one of those, you just had to be there. You had to see the looks on the faces of, for example, just getting your shoes shined. You know, how many young men it's, you know, not particularly part of our culture now, but to see the look on their faces when they saw that their shoes could really shine like mirrors. And, you know, getting that haircut that some may want, but, you know, not be able to get at the time that they wanted. And to see that being donated by people in the community. It was, you know, on both sides. I think that there's a learning process that took place and just a sort of a bonding process that took place that you're going to be able to facilitate, you know, the growth of. So I just can't just stop talking about what a wonderful just experience that day was, and to hear about how it wasn't just a day, but it's something that's really been embedded into the culture of the city is very important. So
can I just say something to that really quick? Because I just want to be clear that, to your point, that the Opportunity Summit on February 27th was a huge win for the city. But as you said, that wasn't the end, right? We're continuing this work. The mayor just this year launched the Newark 2020 initiative, where we're trying to get over 2,020 of our citizens employed right here in the city. And our young people will be a part of that. Summer youth employment was at the table in a huge way. And we're having conversations with them around how do we get more young men of color in our city accessing these kinds of employment opportunities. And at the same time as we're plugging them into programs that work, we're having really tough conversations about why is all of this needed in the first place? Right. Why isn't it that a young man can't just walk in, submit an application, and get a job like anybody else? What are those sort of structural, racial barriers that exist in our society, sadly enough, that we have to be about the work of trying to dismantle?
Right. I would just add one more thing. And Katim talked about dismantling these structural barriers that young men are facing. And I think this is a conversation that him and I have quite frequently. And it's really about our work that we do. Are we dismantling that structural racism in the work, right, in our community for our young people? And I think in everything that we do, that's the question that we look at each other and we really ask ourselves. And if we're not doing that, we can't focus on it. It has to be about dismantling structural racism in our community.
This is another whole show, but yes, absolutely. Absolutely, it does. It's not about just the individual acts, but it's about how it impacts on everything. You're right, another show. So we have a young person here, and we're all young, of course, but Ramon has been involved in Newark, just an active young person in Newark, in politics, in education, since I've known him since he was a very young man. And now, you know, to see you, you know, here as one among us, you know, again, this is your place. This is where you belong. And now you're an intern with My Brother's Keeper. Can you speak to how young men can get more involved?
Yes, actually, and thank you for having me here today. So there's different ways that young men can be involved. We, in My Brother's Keeper Newark, we actually have a fellowship program, and we gathered 10 young men between the ages of 16 and 29 to join the fellowship program, and we teach them leadership skills, how to be a leader within your community. We just actually doing what is it to be a real man challenge, and you know we get for them to ask their friends and just for themselves. We ask them, what is it to be a real man? You know, in your community, what is it to be a leader? And you know, it takes a toll on them, and it, you know, they spread it out. And you know, and it's really good for them to learn that you know you can become a leader within your community, and then to just go out and make the people that follow them become leaders as well. You know, so that's one way. Another one we did was I worked on a project with both Katim and Will of sending young students to see the Black Panther film. And we gathered roughly about 175 students from Camden Street School, Barringer High School, People's Prep, and Eagle Academy. And we wanted them to see the film, not only just to see a Marvel movie. Everyone loves Marvel, the comics, every kid loves that. But more or less the morals behind it, to actually be a Black African-American superhero, a leader of his country. A lot of our students here in the city don't get to see that often. We have a African-American mayor, that's great. We had an African-American president who we still love dearly. But we need more people to come out there, more people to become leaders for them to do that. So by just that one specific group that we took in, now they've been shaped into to become a leader, and when they do become leaders, more students will get involved. And it's just a process after that.
Wow. So are you saying that young men can become leaders without being bullies? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Well, so it's all about, it's just like training, but it's also, you got to have a bigger role model, as what Katim said. You got to have that role model. You have to be taught that not just to force your way into everything. Sometimes you do have to persuade somebody. There's hard work and dedication always. It's not, oh, let's have an event and here we go, the next day we can have it. No, there's a lot of work behind that, and you have to be really dedicated to make that change.
So learning processes,
Yes.
and learning how to kind of execute your way from what you want to what you
Exactly,
and
to
make
get
it
to your
happen.
main goal, and make it happen.
Okay, and those are lessons we can all use in life, because we all want what we want when we want it, but we have to learn how to make it happen.
Yes.
So thank you.
I'm glad you asked that, because a part of how we think about, what does our work look like on the ground, it very much comes out of that idea of young people taking leadership, right? And in so many ways, yes, we believe that great leaders are born, but we also believe that leaders are made. And part of the work that Will leads is that leadership development around advocacy, right? And bringing your voice to all of these issues that we've been talking about. Because, when we think about graduating from high school, the challenges of going into post-secondary education or training, if you've had a little scuffle with the law, how do you pick your life back up? Or if you're out there trying to find a job, right? Who can speak to that reality better than that young man himself, right? Who can advocate for the kinds of changes that need to be made better than that young man himself? And I don't know if you want to say more about some of our organizing work, but that's a big part of who we are.
Yeah, I would say kind of moving forward as the work evolves and develops, we're really going to be focusing on a community organizing strategy, right? For so long, there have been policy advocacy campaigns that have happened throughout the city. We've seen some impact. We've seen some things not kind of take off. We believe within BK Newark, the only way that we'll be able to effectuate real change in community is if it's community led. So in the coming months, we'll be putting our heads together to really figuring out what communities we're going to really go deep in and really start to build a team of courageous leaders, right? And I think that courage piece is something that's important as well, because it's not easy to step out front. It's not easy to come to the plate and hit that home run. So through like the fellowship program that Ramon has, we'll be able to tap into some of these young people in our city that are already leaders, right? And that just need a little bit more cultivation to really be that positive force that they can be in the community.
I love that term, courageous leaders,
Yeah.
because, I agree. I think there are so many young people out here who want to, but they just need to know, A, that it's okay, and B, how, who's going to kind of give that leadership and that guidance. So that's so important. Just want to turn for a minute, though, back to the adults, because there's so many folks in our communities. So, we talked about the shoe shine and the barber, but there's so many other small businesses and others in the community, I think, who would like to get involved, who would like to know maybe that what they do is something that's needed. So maybe they don't know that. So with this question, what can people do who want to get involved? And then how can anyone get in touch with you guys?
So I'll start, and certainly, you all add. I tend to think about this and asking the question, how do we create a city that works for young men of color? in all ways, right? Everything from where you grow up in terms of the positive influences that you have in your lives to when you get ready to think about school and life and, all of those different, twists and turns that we all make in life. How do you get a city that really works for young men of color? And so as we talked about mentoring earlier, one of the things that we're moving forward on is trying to recruit more men in our community to be mentors, to give back, not necessarily going to basketball games and so forth, but really just committing that time to invest and give a positive word to a young man who lives right in your neighborhood, who can see you as a positive role model. Another thing that we've been thinking about is, this thing of what it means to be a man, especially in a community where a lot of our young people are raised in single female-headed households. How do you see sort of that image that helps you understand for yourself what you want to be as a man? And so it's not so clear. And so how do we create opportunities for young people to learn that? So we're going to partner with faith-based organizations throughout the city to develop rites of passage programs, especially for our middle school young people who are just trying to figure out life, so that they can get that sort of culturally rich experience. And so there'll be more on-ramps like that to get more people in the community involved.
So I mean, if I would add anything there, there's one big thing that we don't talk about. It's about supporting the work, right? We are a small team. It's not a big shop, regardless of the headlines you read in the paper. There's not a lot of money behind the work, right? To do an event like we did at the Prudential Center, right? It wasn't all free, right? To be able to take
For sure.
175 young people to the movies, it's not free. I
No,
think
it's
Ramon was able to raise something like $3,000 to be able to make that happen. So we can also use like the financial support, of course. But then again, he'll probably hit me under the table for this next one, right? But MBK is not the only organization in the community that's doing this type of work, right? There are ways to plug in many different lanes. I think about the work that's happening at the Children's Cabinet, right? And some of the safe passage and the safe haven work, right? If you're a business, get involved with that. There are mentor programs that are happening. You got Leaders for Life programs like Outreach. There's many organizations. It's just really about finding what you want to do for young people and then finding that match. And I think part of our work is helping you find that match. So if you don't know what you want to do, but know you want to give back, give us a call, right? Talk to Katim, talk to myself, talk to Ramon, and we can kind of plug you with one of our partners so you can really get on the ground into the community and really start helping young people today.
So is there a number or a website or how can people get in touch with you?
I would direct folks to our website. It's mbknewark.org, mbknewark.org.
Thank you.
All of our contact information is up there, and we're actually uploading all of our events and the programs that we have coming up on the site.
And I just want to underscore something that Will said, because just because you see 3 people here, we're not going to, change the world by ourselves.
Right.
A lot of the work that we do is through partnership and in the collaboration with a lot of the good work that's already happening in the city. You have the Opportunity Youth Network, who is focused on this same population, asking the same questions as we are in terms of how do we get more young people who are not in school that should be in school. I think the mayor, when we did the Opportunity Summit, said there were 7,000 young people in the city who should be in school or working and are not. Right? And so you have them re-engaging young people all across the city with education and job training. You have the mayor's policy
Youth Policy Board.
Youth Policy Board.
Right.
Yeah. So it's through these partnerships that we see, this sort of vision being possible.
So I think that is very important because 3 people can't do it all. And I think the beautiful thing is that things are starting to align in Newark. Right. There are people who are working on the same things for the same reasons, but are beginning to work together more. And that's what's really important, and that's where we're going to see the impact. Absolutely. So, the work that you do, the work that, we do with the Children's Cabinet and all of these other entities, we're all working towards this. We all are kind of philosophically aligned and working in the same direction for the young people in Newark. So it's a beautiful new day, in that sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We hope to be a megaphone for change.
Hey,
so
we will. We will. So, and I hope I phrased this question well, but My Brother's Keeper obviously focuses on young men. There are other organizations, and I'm not going to name one because there are a few that focus on the particular needs of young women. At the end of the day, we all live in the world together, and while our individual needs as cohorts must be met. You know, if you can't deal with your own stuff, you sure can't, deal with anybody else's. But, at the same time, as we look at the total society, how do we, having our unique needs, still work together, to complement each other, to move together? Guess what? Okay? We're no good without each other. So how do we kind of assist, how does My Brother's Keeper assist young men in being able to work in partnership with women, so that we can kind of get where we want to get together in our society?
Yeah. I think that's a great question, and it's a part of a national context around the Me Too campaign, and so many other things that we've seen in our community in terms of the women who have lost their lives to domestic violence. We have to get this thing right in terms of the relationship that men and women have with each other. And what better way to do it than while young people are young, to help them learn how to be in relationship with each other. And so, as we said earlier, we don't do anything by ourselves. We work in partnership, and one of our partners is She Wins, a youth leadership development program focusing on young girls in town. And so we're going to be partnering with them on our Real Man Challenge, where we're going to bring young women and young guys together to have these conversations, right? So what messages do you get about being a girl going into your womanhood? What messages do you get being a boy going into your manhood that makes it hard for you to have relationships, right? And we hope out of that we'll just spark more conversation with young people wondering, right, like, how do we be in partnership with each other?
Right. And then I think, just to build off that, in the spirit of collaboration, I know we've had a conversation with the Shani Baraka Center as well. They're very interested in figuring out how we do more for men in that space. We brought up domestic violence, and we know that's a huge issue in our community. But we have to have conversations about it. We need to have real conversations about it. So through that spirit of collaboration, I think we'll be moving in a space where not just for young people, but for older men as well, we can start building a dialogue so we can get to the issues that we need to discuss.
It is certainly an intergenerational discussion that has to take place for so many reasons. Another show. Yeah. It's another whole show.
We're going to have to have here a lot, right?
Okay, and I want to say thank you very much. I'm going to hopefully have time to give you like 30-second closing, but I want to move now and give the answer to the EduTalk. So, the fun fact question, and I'm going to read them over again really, really quickly. Which of the following is not a milestone of My Brother's Keeper? Getting a healthy start in entering school ready to learn, reading at grade level by 3rd grade, making sure every student goes to a high-achieving school, or graduating from high school ready for college and career, or completing post-secondary education or training, successfully entering the workforce, keeping kids on track, and giving them second chances. You want me to answer it, or does somebody here want to answer it? Which one is not?
So this is a trick question a little bit.
No, it's not.
I think just a little bit, because they're kind of tied together. Because I don't know if you can have one
without
without the other. But go ahead.
I got one.
I got one.
All right. Okay, so the one that is not a milestone of My Brother's Keeper is making sure every student goes to a high-achieving school. Yeah. And the reason it's not, and tell me if I'm wrong, is because My Brother's Keeper does not, I'll put it nice, doesn't care what school you come from, what school you go to, and that's not the focus. The focus is not to get you in a different school, but to take you where you are and help you to move forward.
Absolutely.
Am I right?
You are right. Okay. My only caveat there would be that we do advocate that all young people in the city of Newark, especially our young men, should have access to high quality education, right? So that's key for our young men. And if they're not getting into that school, we're not doing our job as a community to make sure that they're present. We have a high chronic absenteeism level in our city that I think in our work we're working to kind of decrease. So I hear you, right? But I think it was a little bit of
I
of a
don't.
trick question,
I don't.
tricking the viewers a little bit.
It wasn't a trick question.
Okay.
It wasn't a trick question at all. I'm going to leave that alone.
All right.
That's another. That's another show. Okay. If we could each take maybe 30 seconds, just with the closing remark. Ramon, would you like to go first?
Yeah. So basically, my closing remarks really is, to make sure that we have people within the community to also, help mold our young men and women to become leaders, in their community, and to make sure that we can all be a part of a bigger change and not, take in the norms of what we have now, but to, make everything just better for everyone.
Thank you. Will?
Closing statements. I think it's really about understanding the need to be invested in the work as a community. We've mentioned this a bunch of times. It's not going to be one person. It's not going to be two people. It's not going to be three organizations that are able to do this. It's going to be the entire city of Newark that's going to put our young people first, specifically our young men, and really kind of make the change that we want to see. And it's not going to just be coming out to a rally. It's not going to come to one program. It's about investing in some type of organization, whether that's MBK Newark or a community organization that's really doing work on the ground for our young people and committing fully to that process.
Thank you.
Yeah. So mine are all thank yous. Thank you to you for this platform. I think it's a great way for us to talk about what's happening in the city. I mean, this work couldn't be possible without our mayor. He responded to the president's call of action and has been supportive from day one. We also have had generous support from Prudential Financial and the foundation to be able to do this work. And so we owe a big thanks to them. And our community advisory board, when I think about who's going to hold us accountable, right, to the things that we say we're going to do and what we want to be when we grow up, we've recruited men from all over the city to be a part of that community advisory board with that charge to tell us if we're on track and help us to get back on track when we're off. And one of the things I'm really proud of is that that advisory board is almost half Latino. And that was an intentional effort on our part because when we say young men of color, we really want to reflect the diversity that's in our city. So thank you to everybody who helps to make this work possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Katine, Will, Ramon. And thank you to everyone for watching this edition of EduTalk. EduTalk is brought to you by Mayor Baraka's Education Office, where we work to make every school a great school. Thank you all. So.